Hi and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us SEO Recap 2021, summarizing the year for the industry. My name is Alona Borzemska and I will be the host of this mini but still great summit organized by the DomainCrawler. And DomainCrawler actually provides SEO experts, marketing researchers with the most accurate link data, allowing them to generate better reports for their customers, get insights about their competition, partners, and customers, and save resources on the crawling, and of course, ultimately increase revenue per customer. Before we start today's summit, I have a couple of notes to share with you. So, this event is about 60 minutes. We are going to talk about the SEO, and you don't have to worry about making notes or missing some information, as we will be sending the recording of this event shortly afterwards. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to pop them into the chat, and we will make sure to pick up the most interesting ones and to ask our speakers. At the end of the summit, we will share the information on how to get an extended version of the Backlink API. So please stay till the very end of the event to get more details. And now let's jump in. We have four amazing speakers with us today. So I'm happy to announce Lexi Mills, CEO at Shift6 Global, Anna Dobrovolskaya, Chief Marketing Officer at Internet Vikings, Malte Landwehr, Head of SEO at Idealo, and Newlands, Chief Marketing Officer at CRS Credit. Unfortunately, Murray couldn't join us live today, but we have a recorded presentation from him, which we will share shortly. So guys and ladies, thanks for joining us today. Really happy to see you. And I think it's the very time to turn the stage to our first speaker. This is Lexi Mills from Shift6 Global. And her topic today is the future of link building, why integration produces the best value links. And a couple of words about Lexi. Lexi is a multi-award winning digital marketing expert specializing in integrating PR and SEO at both strategic and tactical levels. She is president of the Future of Search Foundation and CEO of Shift6 Global, an international consultancy that provides professional services and training to agencies, corporations, government entities, and investors. So, Lexi, thank you again for joining us, and the stage is yours.
Now, today I'm going to look at the future of link building and why I think integration produces the best value links. Now, we've had a weird couple of years. We've seen things like toilet paper peak search results as one of our trends. We've also seen, for the first time in the history of the internet, something exceed porn in terms of popularity. But there was another trend that I observed over the last few years, and it was a rise in integrated strategies becoming a branding tool. And this means high-quality links being used and assessed to improve brand perceptions. So today, we're going to take a quick look at the evolution of this, what this trend means for PRs, content marketers, and SEOs. We're going to look at what this sort of digital high street focus strategy looks like, and then what content you need to fuel this, and how do you stay ahead of the curve. So let's jump right in. My job has largely been building links and getting coverage for businesses like this and agencies like this from these sorts of publications, with really two primary objectives over the last few years: pushing things up the results, essentially increasing footfall on the digital high street, or pushing things down, clearing up digital litter that impacts brand reputation. Now, over the years, there were a lot of black hat tactics that used to help with this, but increasingly, as all these updates keep rolling out from Google, they don't work anymore. They're short-lived at best, and at worst, they're dangerous for your businesses. When we look at the top ranking factors in current day, what we find is that most of them look and feel like the sort of things that you get naturally from PR-type tactics. And this is because integrated PR SEO can create a ripple effect that doesn't just look natural to Google. It is, in fact, natural. So with every update, you don't have to fear what you're doing, that you might get penalized. So what does this next stage mean for marketeers? Well, we go back to Google's primary premise, which is to organize the world's information to make it universally accessible and useful. And over the last few years, we've seen more and more rich results, like this one you're seeing in front of you now. This is a desktop result, and this is a mobile result. Their idea being to give us as much as possible within the search space without having to click through. And with every update, the digital high street is expanding from images on side panels to snippets. It just gets wider and wider. And so the opportunities and the threats get wider and bigger in line with that. So then when we think about old school SEO tactics of just moving things up and down, that kind of starts to look a little bit linear and outdated because we now work in a multi-dimensional search space. And this presents opportunities for traffic acquisition that we never had before, and for brand. If we look at the average click-through rate for featured snippets, we can see it can be quite high. But this isn't the thing I want you to focus on. Yes, getting a good click-through rate of the different types of rich results is fantastic, and it can give you these sort of bumps in traffic. But more importantly, being the answer to a question is a branding exercise, whether someone clicks through to your site or not. It creates a bond with the user and with the searcher. But we also find that over the last few years, Google's been focusing more and more on voice search. And featured snippets are one of the key ways that these are fueled. So getting those means you're not just targeting people when they're looking at their laptops, looking at their phones. You're targeting them when they're speaking to their digital assistants. And when we look at the growth worldwide in digital assistants, it makes perfect sense that we would want to be part of that in our strategies. But it also allows us to make smaller brands look like bigger ones. And this can increase investment, increase trust, increases conversion. And let me show you what I mean. If you're looking at the digital storefront for someone like Greycroft, which is a big venture capitalist, this is what you see. They have this side panel, they've got certain results that come up, key questions. But then when we look at a smaller company like Syndicate Room, with good PR SEO, we were able to get them the exact same digital looking storefront, which means they are seen in a similar light, which is super helpful from a branding exercise. So we've had a look at a few examples, but I'd like to go into more detail with just one for you. So around this time last year, we started speaking to a digital learning company, and online learning was absolutely spiking. And this company was called Esme, and they were about to launch their first online class, but also their first website. So this website did not have lots of links to it. It did not have equity behind it. So when we were thinking about how we could best promote this, we had to be quite careful because we knew that every time a new course launches, other people with pre-existing websites launch PPC campaigns targeting those particular types of keywords in courses, so they can almost piggyback off the back of other people's marketing. So we focused a lot of our effort on pre-launch. We did all of our typical sort of press and on-site content creation, but we really knew that we had to identify partners that we could work with and get links from, because we had to get our results to the very top of Google as fast as possible so that everyone knew they were the owner of this brand new course that was launching. And so luckily we had people like MasterCard, and we arranged with them ahead of time to have a post go up that linked through to their site. But we did something else, because you see, we got 66 pieces of coverage on launch, but we focused in on one very specific one, the Yahoo Finance, and we pointed a lot of partner links at this, and that allowed us within 3 to 4 hours to get this rich result at the top. So if anybody was putting PPC against our course name, they also saw the smart answer, which gave us more screen real estate. And then within 2-3 days, we started pointing links at the client side, and they got the smart answer, which was super helpful because it meant it gave trust. Because when you're working with really authoritative partners like they do, Oxford and MIT, you want to make sure you're showing that off and people know that it's you. They're going to the right site that they've seen the advert for or seen the press coverage about. And these rich results really helped there. And integration was critical to this. We would never have managed this if we weren't integrating. And more we find that businesses are far more concerned with the space around them and the impact it has on brand perceptions and trust more than anything else. And this cannot be achieved in silos. We need more links pointed at more places than ever before. And scalable solutions are super key to this. So I'm going to talk you through a few examples of content you can put on your sites right now that will help you stay ahead of this digital curve. So firstly, rock solid FAQs, and you need to keep these updated so that Google keeps seeing they're fresh. And you can link through to these from all of your press work and your other link building activities. On-site places to put content like blogs or learning centers are becoming even more critical. And about us pages. And this is because a lot of questions around trust with brands are about who owns the company, how big is it, where are their offices. Making sure your about us pages are rock solid makes the world of difference to being able to own the answers, the suggested questions that come up in search results. And having a great press center. Here is an example wireframe for one, and this will be shared afterwards so you can look through it. But it doesn't need to be rocket science, but if you have this info on there, it will really help you sculpt the entire 3D search space that's coming up for your brands. And then finally, put detailed headshots and bios of your specialists on your site. NerdWallet has a great page for this that you can look at for an example, but you can build links to these profiles a lot easier than you can to commercial pages. So we've had a look at the evolution of this trend. We've looked at what it means for PRs, content marketers, and SEOs. And it also means a lot to brand managers as well now. And we've looked at an example of what digital high street focused PR SEO looks like. And how do you future-proof? What content do you need to get on your site so that no matter what updates are coming, you have the opportunity to have rich results? So in summary, the expanding digital high street presents both risks and opportunities. And we have to integrate if we're going to tackle this whole landscape. We can't do this in silos anymore. And it's really important, more than anything else, to notice what isn't coming up for your brand and see if you can get that too, because that's what's going to change not just PR, SEO, and content, but it's going to change the face of brand management in the future. Thank you ever so much, everyone. My name's Lexi Mills. You're welcome to tweet me with questions. If you want more examples, I'm always happy to chat about this.
Yes, amazing. Thank you, Lexi. It was super insightful and interesting to learn about the latest trends in link building, and especially when you proved it with the great examples. And actually, I have a question. You partly already answered that, but maybe you could just add a little bit more. What do you think? What is the future of the growing relations between the link building and brand management?
I don't think brand managers are going to be able to do their job without a close relationship with SEOs. If you don't own this space, they typically don't have the skills to know how to hack this space and how to create it, which means brand managers don't just have to make friends with the SEOs, they have to make friends with their outreach teams, the on-site content, and the PR teams if they really want to compete, because the really big brands do own all of this. But there's such an opportunity. Smaller companies can have all of this too if they integrate effectively, which is beautiful because it means that the business space is becoming more democratized. And the one people that can integrate easier are smaller firms. We work with a lot of big firms, and it's very hard for them to get these teams working together. But when you walk into a firm of 10 to 30 people, to get all those key people around the table, it's not hard. So I love the fact that it gives smaller companies a real opportunity. And then when they grow, they're growing already with integration at the core. So it's not hard for them to scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you, Lexi. And unfortunately, we have just one opportunity to ask you just one question. So, and for those people who want to ask you like additional questions, topic related, we have your Twitter link in the chat, and they can reach you out in there, right?
Thank you. Speak to you all in a moment.
Yes, thank you. So, and we will move to our next speaker, and it is Murray Newlands from CRS Credit Group. Murray has led B2B marketing for SaaS and B2C organizations for over 20 years. And as a contributing writer in publications like Forbes and Entrepreneur and the host of the How to CEO podcast, Murray shares information and ideas with C-level leaders. His topic today is is creating stories that attract organic links. But as I mentioned earlier, he just couldn't join us today, unfortunately, but he prepared a great recording of his topic where he covers it like in full. So let's have a look at it.
Hello, I'm Murray Newlands, CMO of CRS Credit API. Thank you for coming to this webinar. So in this conversation, I'm going to be talking about how to tell stories, or why to tell stories, and the importance of telling stories in link building. My thesis is that since the beginning of time, people have been sitting around campfires telling stories. Stories are a great way to communicate with people. And as we're building content for the web and we want to build links, telling stories is a really important part of that process and the thought process of developing content, communicating content to other people, and convincing other people to publish that content, which is also really important, as well as getting people to link back to it. So how do I think about that, and how do I use that to inform my SEO strategies? Well, if you think about what is a writer trying to do, what are they trying to evolve? What are their goals with the conversations that they're trying to spark? They want to create great content. You want to create great content that people will engage with. You want to increase the engagement opportunities for that content. You want people to share it. You want people to forward it to their friends. You want people to want to come back to your content. You want to catch their attention. You want to draw them into the story, and you want them to be able to link back to it. In order to do that, you need to have the content that they are looking for. It needs to engage with them with what they're looking for. So think about this. You come to you as a reader, you come to a publication. You see a title that you like, you start to read the content. If it's boring, you're just going to go away. If it connects with you, if you connect with it, then you're going to stay and you're going to read it and you're going to read through and you might follow some interesting links. That's what you're trying to create and evolve with your content. So when you're doing that, you want to think about who the reader is. So when you're creating content on your own site, you want to think, who is the reader? Why am I creating this content? What's a story that I can convey to them that fulfills their desires, that is going to meet what they're looking for, that's ideally going to potentially help them, that's going to help them solve a problem, for example, or help them by engaging with an emotion, get an emotion out of them. Ideally, within that, you'd have some statistics, something that people can absorb. People love statistics. It's something that we as humans just love. So when thinking about then pitching other publications with the story of your company or products or services or whatever it is you're trying to communicate, you want to think about the publication, yes. But generally, if you've got different writers for different publications, you've got different actual interest groups those different columns are serving. If you think about bigger publications, they might have many contributors, for example. Each of those contributors might be contributing to a different section. They might have a different type of follower to their particular column. What is their audience about? So you need to think what stories will resonate with the column, with the writer, with the audience that that writer is trying to build. Not the publication as a whole. People far too often think, hey, I'm going to write this story and pitch it to this publication. You need to think, I'm pitching it to this writer. What is this writer trying to do? What's the journey that writer's on? What's the journey they've been taking their audience to? And why is that audience going to be passionate about the topic that you're writing about? And what's the story for those? And you might have one story, you might have one product that can be used in different ways, that has different types of application that you can use in such a way that you tell it to different audiences. Sure, when you're telling people who you meet what you do, for example, depending on who they are, you will tell that story in very different ways. So when you're thinking about storytelling, you also need to think about how am I going to tell this one story in many, many different ways in order to make it resonate with exactly the audience of the publication and the columnist and the column at the time when you're telling the story. So let's take a couple of examples with that. So I had a great SEO talk by someone early on in my career that really like sparked an interest. He told me he sold boots and jackets. Okay, that's not necessarily exciting. He told me he sells boots and jackets to firemen. Firemen, you wear boots and jackets, saving lives. The picture of a fireman coming out of a burning building, having saved someone, wearing the boots and jackets, that's what drives passion. That's how you make boots and jackets, which aren't necessarily exciting, something that is exciting. Now, it's exciting for general news, that I saved someone in my neighborhood. That neighborhood news is interested in that. It's interesting potentially on a national scale if it was a big fire. It's interesting in the fire protection industry. Hey, these boots in this scenario are safer, maintain the feet of the fireman in a safer way. It's of interest to maybe executives in the fire industry. Hey, these boots are safer, they provide safety for your men or women, plus are they cheaper, are they more expensive? What does that mean from a cost reduction perspective? From an HR perspective, hey, firemen who you have to hire less firemen if their feet are better protected. So the same story you can be telling in multiple ways. I work for a CRS Credit. We provide data, credit data. There are many different stories with that. One is that for developers, hey, we provide data which you can more easily access in order to do credit pulls. We also provide data for a number of applications. So what are those applications? Why do people care about credit data? Well, one of the sets of companies that we provide it to are providing credit services to people who don't normally get credit, to minorities, helping minorities get credit, helping them into new homes, buy new cars or whatever it is. And therefore, we actually help change people's lives by providing a great access to credit data. So you can think about how your particular product is of interest to those particular groups, and how do you tell a story? And then how do you tell a story which actually connects with humans? What is it that you do that at the end of the day changes people's lives? And that's what you want to try and convey when you're trying to convey the story and the content. And think about what those publications want to need. As I talked about earlier, having data points is really important if you can have data in your story. If you can include data in your story, then that includes a reason for why people should link back to the original story. Maybe there's a number of data points you can publish in your conversational story. What else might they pick up on? You could have different infographics for different types of audience, so they can carry that into their publication and they can link back to the original content. What is it that you can provide that are additions to your content that actually gives them the reason? For you, it's a tool. It's a tool to get them to link back to you. But for them, it's a reason. What's the reason for them to link back to you? And then when you're pitching it to the writer, you need to be saying, hey, this story, I have this story. I think it's of interest to your audience for these reasons. And here's why they will be passionate about it. Because you need to convince the writer, the publisher, that their audience will be passionate about the story that you're telling. And that will be great content for their audience in order to further what they're trying to do. Thank you very much. I hope that helps you with your SEO content marketing strategies. I'm Murray Newlands, CMO of CRS Credit. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Yes, that was a really great presentation. And yeah, we don't have a possibility to ask Murray directly questions here, but you can find in the chat the link to his Twitter where he can be reached. So please use it to ask your topic-related questions. And I think it's high time to move to another speaker. It is Anna Dobrovolskaya, Chief Marketing Officer from Internet Vikings. And her topic today specifically targeted at rank trackers and link builders. builders how to compete with industry giants to grow your domain authority, reputation, and brand online. Anya is a marketeer with a diverse set of skills with a particular interest in digital marketing and SEO. And being a strong analyst with a creative mind, Anna has spent over a decade assisting growing companies in leveraging their business through marketing activities. So, Anya, we are super happy to see you today, and the floor is yours, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the great introduction, for having me here. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. It's a big pleasure speaking today, and I'm very happy to share some insight with such a great audience of real experts, same as listen to others' very insightful presentation. So it's a big pleasure for me. So if you are ready, I will start. And the topic today, how to compete with industry giants, grow your domain authority, reputation, and brand online. This is a complex question, and it's hard to answer it in 10 minutes probably. It's almost the end of the productive year already, and probably most of you already have made all preparation for 2022, adjusting your strategy for new trends. I won't give you something brand new and not going to educate you within an SEO, but I hope to inspire you and give you some extra ideas how to compete with industry giants operating on SEO service market. So if you are ready, let's start. First, operating in a highly competitive environment, first, what we really need to know our advantages and create the unique highlight of the offer. That is simple, seems to be. We all know that SEO is about the data, and let's put first the question, where should we buy our data to present it to our customers? If you are competing with giants and buying the data from them, it looks like not the best investment. Let's count it like that. So first, what I would recommend to not buy the data from your competitors. You are already an expert, and it's better to choose B2B supplier, like, for example, DomainCrawler, our friends that we are proud to work with, and to collect all data, raw data you need. Those who work in B2C segment as giants invest a lot to a fancy front end and usability. You don't need that to read and understand the metrics. So why to pay for that? The next one, and not less important, like from my point of view, it is also smart to choose exactly what data you need and what your competitors, customers needs. So you would overspend on buying something in a package by the expensive subscription that you don't use at the end of the day. Uh, you should know the numbers exactly and very well. I'm pretty sure that you're aware the number of backlinks you are reviewing every day and you need, or for example, your company is more focused on keywords research and this metric is more important for you, or domain ratio and referring domains numbers and the quality. So knowing what number you are using specifically on day-to-day basis, calculated it in the month, you can make a conclusion, like what specific and like prognose your spends for the next month and order exactly what you need, not buying the full package that includes probably not everything you need. This is another point to think about. One more, it's also not just a matter where you buy the data, it's also about the quality. Buying in the mass market, let's call it like that, you are getting more quantity, not quality. The quality of your data is one of the advantages you should use to compete the giants. Exclude duplicates, spam sites, RSS links, and that will make the difference. So I would highly recommend to pay a lot of attention to what data you are using and what that includes. By filtering it in the right way, you will not just save cost, but same time you will be able to create a real value for your customers. That will definitely help you to grow the domain authority, reputation, and brand online. So another and very important point uh, is our communication with the customers. Having fewer customers, you can treat them differently and provide the real care. Uh, don't switch to bots and automatization that use lots of giants optimizing the processes. Use personalization, and then your customer will be happy to pay even more for the service that they get from you. So, for example, Internet Vikings, we are in a highly competitive market as a hosting provider, uh, like looking into worldwide market of all the hosting providers, not with the specific audience. We are competing, and we have a lot of companies who use the automatization, auto respond, and so on. What have we done? We have provided a unique customer support, real people, human problem solving, all time and line, like answering all the questions, solving the issue for the customer whenever they need us. We are sending the customized reports specifically dedicated to the specific customer. We provide the special care, and even growing bigger and bigger, it is still possible and easy to maintain and keep it in the same level, and it is expandable. As for the SEO agencies, for example, taking into account the specific in general, when the result is visible for your customer in 3, 6, 9 months, it's even more important to update regularly, to communicate, to give all the stages of the process of your project, like what is the progress, what is the status, what we have done, how is that, what do you have any questions, we are here, and do you have any other suggestions or wishes, and we are here to help. So that is another advantage that is hardly available for giants, that can be your big benefit. And finally, act and think differently. The metrics we used for ages are already something stable and well known. But Google changes. They adopt algorithm to copy human being, nothing new for us. So why not to invent, for example, the humanity rank in combination with the data UI? Whatever, be creative. It probably can sound as a joke, but be first, be different, and be unique. 3 key points that will help to boost your company. To sum up, my main message seems obvious, but we still do not use that a lot. Focus on the specific audience and create your own unique proposition. That will help. Giants have already created the template and customer communication in one way. Acting differently, you can create a simple way of reading and using your own expertise. You can invent your own metric, navigation, and create your own trend that others will follow. Keep it simple. Own the data and own the world.
Amazing. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, it was really insightful. And actually, your advice on like keep it simple is one of the greatest ones. But sometimes it's super difficult to keep it simple. But yeah, that's what we all shall aim to.
Not
And
overthink and not overcomplicate. That always
yes,
I'm telling to myself as well.
that's the challenge, of course. I have a question. What do you think? What aspect is the most important in order to take the lead? Is it like price, quality, customer service, or anything else?
It anyway depends on the company type, the target audience, the specifics. You can it's, like it's never black and white. You can win-win. Sometimes you can win with the cost in some period of time, or you can invest in more quality service, customer care, put the cost higher and win even more in that, not having the bigger number of customers, less, but with a higher cost. Probably diversification and like the future of 2020, and like it is already past, I believe, is sustainability and thinking about the long-term goals and what will be in 5-10 years, what Google will change and find out even more. So this is probably something that will be the most important for the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think our audience have like more questions to you. And I was told that you can be reached via LinkedIn, so we will share the link to your profile on the chat. I can see it has appeared there as well. So please expect the audience to ask you numerous questions there.
Thank you so much for listening, for all the questions, and for your comment and support.
Thank you. Yeah.
Looking forward for the next speaker.
Yes, we are moving towards our next speaker. Last but not the least, Malte Landwehr from Idealo. Malte will share his thoughts upon the significance of Google updates in 2021 and what activities and trends will pay off next year. And actually, Malte is the head of SEO at Idealo, the leading price comparison site in multiple European markets. Previously, he spent 5 years as a VP of product at Searchmetrics, and he also worked in a management consultancy, conducted social media research at WWU, and co-founded the agency SEO Factory with offices in Germany and on Crete. Malte, thanks for joining us today, and really looking forward to the insights from you. Please.
Thanks for the introduction. And I hope the screen sharing and everything is working and we have no more technical hiccups. I will talk a little bit about Google updates. Is that thing that happens sometimes, and either it makes us very, very happy or it makes us very, very sad. And I will talk a little bit about the updates of last year and will try to focus on more general lessons. Because I think it would be a bit boring to, just go through a list of winner and loser domains. The chart we are looking at here is the SEO visibility chart provided by Systrix. So it should show us the online performance of a domain. And in this case, it's Idealo. And it's my a little bit of a joke, but also my proof of why I'm here. So basically in May 2020, Idealo was hit by the core update. Really lost a lot of visibility. And then in the July core update, we were actually the largest winner in Germany. And in the November core update of this year, we were the second largest winner in Germany. And this little event B that's marked there, that's actually when I joined the company. But of course, I didn't make us the winner of these core updates. I was just lucky to join at this time. So now it looks like a really nice chart, and it looks like I actually know about SEO updates. But still, I will try to share some of the things I've learned. So my first lesson really is that you can actually ignore most Google updates. And let me prove how I came to that conclusion. If we look at all the official Google updates in last year, or this year, actually, the year is not over yet, there were 11. And they were a little bit clustered in June, July, and then also in November, December. And all of these updates where Google officially confirmed that there's an update rolling out at that time. And then actually, if we look at what Google says for most of these updates, for example, the last core update, Google said, again, it's a core update and there's some guidance, right? Google is really nice. They are linking to a guidance on the update, but maybe not, because if you check the article with the guidance, it's actually an article that's over 2 years old, and it's the same guidance that they give for every single core update. So basically, Google says nothing apart from, there is a core update, and it's about making good website and satisfying user intent. And while I'm sure all SEOs would agree with me that if Google was more transparent about these updates, we all would have a more simple job. The reality is that we often don't really know what's going on in a core update. And something that I observed a lot is that there are many SEOs who share their opinion on social media about what the update is about. And a very sad reality is that I think most SEOs are not able to analyze and come to the correct conclusions, because the amounts of data you need to look at are so vast. And by just looking at one industry or just looking at one country, maybe even just looking at one website, it's very hard to come to generalizable conclusions of what a core update really was about. So my advice here is not to listen to any random interpretation you see on Twitter regarding what the core update was about. And I would actually take it a step further. Unless you work in an SEO agency that is specialized in Google updates, you should not read every single analysis of Google updates you see. You should not try to understand every Google update. Rather, I would recommend to use Google updates as a benchmark for your SEO strategy, and maybe even feedback to fine-tune and adapt your strategy, but I would not obsess over updates and what they are about. And this comes, or actually leads quite well to my second lesson. Not all announced updates are important, but also not all important updates are announced. And we will use a nice tool from Moz, where basically every day they measure how much the search results have changed, and they translate it into a temperature. So basically a hotter day is a day with a lot of changes in the search results. A cool day is a day with very few changes. And then we can look at 3 official Google updates: the July core update, the July spam update, and the November spam update. But then let's also look at the October unnamed and unofficial update that is just on this list because a lot of SEOs discovered it. And actually the temperature on this October unnamed update is almost as high as the core update in July, and is actually higher than on the spam updates, meaning that these 2 spam updates that Google announced and communicated were actually less important than this totally unannounced, unnamed change, where they wouldn't even say that a core update is rolling out. And this kind of tells us that some of the things that they are announced actually don't have a lot of impact, but also there are things that Google never announces that do have a lot of impact. Or another example is Stepstone. For those of you who don't know it, they are a website with job listings or job ads. And for Stepstone, I would argue that the most important Google update is not a Google update, but it is how much Google decides to present their Google jobs in the search results. So here we see in red the SEO performance of Stepstone, in blue the SEO performance or the pseudo SEO performance of Google jobs. And we can see that whenever Google decides to roll out more Google job listing boxes, the SEO performance of Stepstone drops. And this actually has more impact on their total SEO performance than any Google update. But this is something that all websites that are not job listing websites probably can completely ignore, while for job listing app websites, this is more important than any other Google update. So it gives you a perspective that in certain industries, certain things are relevant that are not relevant at all in other updates and other industries. And another lesson is that updates are not permanent. And I would like to share insights from 3 domains that I'm in charge of. So there's one domain where in the days before the Google update, it was growing roughly with 0.7% every day. During the update, it was a 1.9% growth. And after the update, it went again to a 0.8% growth every day. And this is like a website that's already had a positive trend. We knew it was working well, and the Google update supercharged it. This is like the perfect way to experience a Google update, I would say. There's a second domain where it was a little bit different. It had a negative trend, so it lost about 0.1% of rankings day over day, every single day before the update. During the core update, it gained every day 1.7% of rankings or visibility, or however you wish to measure it. But now, after the Google update, it started gaining 2.8% per day. And I'm not quite sure about this one. Either Google lied about when the core update ended, or the core update recalculated something that was some kind of malus or blocker, like some negative thing that was laying on this domain. And now they reevaluated it, and actually it unlocked even more growth in the Google update itself. And there's the third case, again, a domain that was shrinking and losing rankings at a speed of 0.1% every day, then actually gained okay every day, 0.8% during the update, but is now losing every day, and actually losing stronger than it was before the update. So here I think this is a case where Google didn't know which website to rank, probably randomly decided on ours, but actually saw that where for the keywords where they started to rank us, we are actually not a good match, so started taking away the rankings again. So this is like a nice overview of the different cases you can have with the Google update. So don't open the champagne just because you had a good Google update. It could be that everything is going down again immediately after the update. This is actually a funny one. Lesson 4, you might not know you are affected. And my example is Repubblica, I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrongly, from Italy, where the markers A and B are Google updates, the July and November core updates. And you can see that there was some change. But if you look at the overall volatility of the domain, it wasn't a super huge change. But if we look at the different hosts, we can see that their Repubblica IT and their Disegnaro Repubblica IT were super, super heavily affected by the updates, and actually in reverse order. So if I see this chart, this actually has huge implications on my SEO efforts, right? I would immediately investigate if on the I have content that where I need to reevaluate if it should be in the Google index. And on the Dizionari, I would immediately check if there is additional content of the same variety that we can produce, because Google seems to like it. But this is not something that I would have been able to see if I had just looked at the overall performance chart. So really drilling down, diving deep into the data sometimes is important during Google updates. And my last lesson already is that you can predict Google updates, at least if you have a large website, ideally multiple ones. Because something that I have seen again and again and again over the years is that before a Google update, Google will start crawling your website more often, because they want to make decisions based on fresh data, not outdated data. So really on many large websites, you can see that in the days before the update, you have like a day, a week, maybe 2-week period where Google is crawling a lot. And you can see this in Google Search Console. And the best indicator is if the Google bot comes and starts crawling hundreds of thousands URLs again that have not existed since 2019. This is something that we see very regularly before a Google update. And I think it's this last resort effort of Google to find more potentially valuable URLs, to recrawl them, to make really sure everything they have in the index is up to date before they run out the update. Important, if you are running Google Shopping ads, you need to make sure to select in the Search Console the Google bot, the smartphone bot most likely, or the desktop bot, not the ads bot. Because if you are an advertiser on Google Shopping, it's very likely that 90% of your Google bot traffic is the ads bot, who is checking availability and price correctness. And the second thing you should check is if your website became a lot faster, because if the average response time of your website goes down, so if the Google bot can crawl faster, it's also very normal that you have a spike in crawl activity. But if you can rule this out, then it's very likely that a crawl increase on many different domains is an indicator of a Google update. And yeah, that's it from my side. And now I'm interested, of course, to hear if we have an interesting question maybe.
Thank you, Malte. Malte, it was super interesting. I personally liked the slides. They were really like eye-catching. And like afterwards, I understand that like those Google updates are quite tricky ones, and you have to be like quite cautious when you try to analyze them. Actually, I don't see the questions from the audience, but I just see the comment that great insights. Aidan Blundell says that I feel like I have just spoken to my therapist about what is happening in the updates recently. Thanks, Malte. I feel like I should move on now. Thanks for these comments, really interesting ones. Yes, and I have a question. I was thinking about whether the voice search become a major game changer in SEO industry next year. Malte, what do you think?
Sorry, if voice search is becoming a major?
Yes, voice search.
I mean, there are people who have been telling me for the past 5 years that next year voice search will become big, and I also once believed it. I think the reality is that it's not happening. Voice search is really limited and it's very practical, and I have a Google Home device myself that I muted before the presentation so that doesn't interrupt us. But you really can only do simple search, like how many people live in a certain city, is a certain store open, these kinds of things. But when you ask them more complex questions, what these devices are always doing is they either say, I sent you a link to your app, or the manufacturers now actually started to add a screen again, because it's easier to display it on a screen. And I really don't think that voice search is changing a lot. I think there are many interesting applications for voice commands and also simple voice search, but I don't see that voice search is changing a lot. I just don't believe in it.
Okay, and we are having like another question. How do you prepare a website for a Google update? I think it's like quite a general question involving like really a lot of the background. But if you can make it like short and precise one, that would be great.
I'll try. I think in general, most of the time you can't prepare. My advice would be to do good SEO, like only show Google landing pages that have value and are not duplicates. Make sure your content matches the search intent. Make sure you have a good user experience. This like general SEO advice should prepare you for most updates. And then sometimes there are updates like next year, there will be the update when the core web vitals become also relevant for desktop rankings, where Google communicates in advance how important they are, or not how important they are, but communicates in advance that they are coming. And according to Google will be important. And in this case, it's quite clear, right? Measure your core web vitals, and if they are bad and you believe that the update could have impact, improve the core web vitals. And if there's communication from Google, it should actually be very easy to build a business case internally to get funding and resources, or priority in product and technology teams, which often is very, very difficult for in-house SEOs, because all they can say is, yeah, I read these 3 articles and I looked at these 5 competitors and I think we should do this, which for many companies means they will not do it because it's so unconcrete. But with pre-announced updates like the mobile update or now the core web vitals, I think that's actually an opportunity for in-house SEOs to get resources, even if they actually think they should be doing something else, but will never get the resources and internal support for it.
Right. Thank you. And I see that we are starting to receive a bunch of new questions, but unfortunately we don't have time to answer them. But you can reach Malte via his LinkedIn, which will soon appear on the chat, and ask the questions right there. So thank you, Malte, for the presentation. And thank you to all of our speakers for their messages and insights. I think it was super efficient for all of us, and I'm sure that all the things that you've mentioned and said will help our listeners to better understand the complicated world of SEO in general, the Google updates, and so on. And now I promise that you will have an opportunity to get an extended free trial of the DomainCrawler Backlink API. And I'm suggesting now to have a look at the short video we prepared about it. Please.
Looking for a source of backlink data to power your backlink research solutions and tools? Introducing Backlink API from DomainCrawler, a massive data source that will allow you to expand domain coverage, generate reports that count, save resources on crawling, stay ahead of your competitors, We are crawling more than 100 billion pages a month and updating our counters every 30 days. It is an easy-to-implement solution with clear documentation and white label usage, supported by the in-house engineering team that will take care of every detail in the process. With over 30 highly effective endpoints, you and your customers will be able to find pages that attract the most links, control new and lost backlinks, identify low-quality backlinks, find domain and page search rank, collect backlink anchors, and much more. Offer more to your clients with Backlink API.
So in order to receive an extended version, you need to visit our website, which has already appeared on the chat. Leave an application there, put in the word SEO Recap 2021, all in one word, and then our managers will contact you shortly and set a test account for you. So that was it for today. I was super happy to meet all of you on this mini summit dedicated to the SEO. So please visit our website, follow our updates on social media, and have a very good rest of the week and happy coming holidays. See you next time. Cheers.